Barabolorin. Okay. I don't have a choice then to speak in English here because my Armenian is not that good enough to be able to talk in Armenian, but if you ask any question later on, I'll be able to understand it, I hope. My name is Arvin. I born in Iran, in Armenian community. Living there, well, growing up in Tehran. Went to university, quit university after 3 months, and then been to army for 2 years, and all of that has been to aiming to get a passport and get out of there as soon as I could. And I did it. And I decided to go somewhere where I don't know anyone and no one knows me, so I might live as I wish, and not in conditional life, in a community life. So I left to South America, to Brazil specifically, which that is back in 2000. Lack of internet and information, I didn't have any idea where I'm going. The dream of Brazil was Amazon and all that thing, which most of the people think about it. But when I arrived there, the reality was very different. So to be able to do all the dreams that I had in a country which economically was not a very easy place to live even, so studying and all that things has been just a dream and just evaporated the very first year arriving there. But meanwhile, when I arrived there, well, there are a lot of details I can talk about, but I will just generalize it. The very first year, very first months, I just decided before I settle down anywhere, I will look around and see that I find somewhere more interesting, at least beautiful, or better that I like it, so I will settle there. That means look for work, and work just everyone does in the whole world, right? So I started to pick up buses without knowing any idea, without a map, to knowing where I'm going and what I'm doing. Anyway, I just choose the names as beautiful they look to me, so I choose a name just like that. Okay, it's a beautiful name, I buy a ticket, I go there. And sometimes these bus rides, which I thought it would be an hour or two, it took me, I don't know, 17 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours. And I will end up in these little villages in Brazil. Anyway, that's how it started. And then later on, I meet other people who are traveling with backpacks. So I figure out, oh, I'm a backpacker, and I didn't know that before. So I keep on traveling, and it was easy because in that time, 2000, Brazil was a cheap country to travel, and I had a very little money. And I travel until I finish it. And I end up in north of Brazil in a city called Natal. Anyway, I don't want to go to details, but it's been continuously traveling and working, and meanwhile I find different ways to make the living out, like doing, I don't know, arty crafts or handcrafts, or changing them, not always selling them, but changing them and for food or whatever. For my main point became just going on and see what is the next, after the next horizon, what is coming after that. And it became a disease, it became an addiction, and I couldn't stop. So after that, after 2-3 years, everywhere I stopped for 2 months, I became depressed. So I decided I'd keep on doing that, because I find a very easy way to do it, so I keep on doing it. But meanwhile, by incidents, I happen speaking this Portuguese language and Persian and in a meanwhile English. It helps me to find different works. One of them was tourism. So I started doing the very first or maybe second group of Iran tourism to come to Brazil. And I was doing that once a year. I would come to Sao Paulo, I will receive this group, I will go around Brazil for 2 weeks with them, and then they will fly off. The money for me was good enough to be able to live my very simple life, which was always a little tent. Sometimes I would just camp in a nice, beautiful beach in tropical zones, and I would be there for 3 months. Why not? It was good and nice. So, well, I keep on doing that for years. After 3rd or 4th years in Brazil, just by incident in the airport, someone figured out I speak different languages, especially Persian in Brazil. So he offered me to work as a translator for some meat business companies, which they are coming to buy meat from Brazil for Iran. So I accepted because I didn't have money, and it was a good money. I started doing 3 months of translation, and in that period of time, I learned all the tricks about the business, about the meat business. It's a very small, closed market, so people know each other. Once you are in, everyone knows you. It has its good points and bad points. But anyway, I started doing, after 3-4 months, I became the representative of the European company who was buying them in. And it worked with them for a year and a half. But that 1 year and a half has been a computer, a car, with no home, always in hotels, traveling from one industry to the other, control quality, and I didn't know anything about meat before, right? Anyway, doing that for a year and a half, it makes me pissed off because I was not traveling. Okay, I was moving, but I was working and I was obliged to do whatever the company wants. I lose my freedom because of money. So a year and a half later, I have this amount of money which I don't know what to do with it. I never had a desire to have a house. I never had a desire to have a car, and I didn't know how to spend it. And that for me was very hard to accept. Because I could look back for 2, 3 years or 4 years, I've been enjoying my life. I've been moving, traveling, meeting people from all around the world. And I've been doing all right. I've never been hungry. I never sleep hungry. It's a tropic place. I mean, you just do your hand like that. You have a banana or whatever, just round it. In 1 meter, you have a lot of things to eat. So the money was not the main issue. So I give up. I sent this money to somewhere which was needed, and I keep 1,000 of it, $1,000 exactly, and I went to Amazon. And that was a very nice chapter of my life, to being in Amazon and throw off. The very first thing I done was to throw out the mobile phone to the river and get rid of it. So there's no one to contact me, and I don't need to contact anyone. And I keep on going on a river. My main issue of traveling always been my passport before. So with the Iranian passport, I don't know if you know or not, you're almost nowhere to go without a visa. And that was my main issue in Brazil. I managed to get my residency and everything. So one day I would get that passport. I will get that later. But anyway, Amazon, I continue on. I was lucky to get the visa for Peru. So I went to Peru. I travel around, rent a horse, I don't know, do whatever I wish to do with about $1,000. I've always traveled very, very budget. So I've been able to move as much as I could, longer as I could, keeping with that money. And the success in that has been just to reduce my costs. So I was an expert on that, and I've been doing that for the last 17 years. Anyway, after Peru, being in Peru, one of the very major fuck-ups was when I was coming back. So I still have this tourist coming once a year to Brazil. And I have this email from travel agency, March coming, New Year in Iran. So you have a group coming today. I will just give a little resume about these groups. This group started for 20 person a year. But in that 20 person which would come in one group, in 2 weeks sometimes I would be able to do between $6,000, $8,000, because they were rich people, they were coming to spend money. I would sell optional tours, I would sell jewelries, I would get commissions. So it was enough for the whole year. But year after year, the quantity came up, the quality came down, because more people you have less time to give them assistance. My very last group was my biggest fuck up of the tourism. I received 120 people, and I was the only person as a guide. And travel agency didn't send anyone to help. All the previous years, I would coordinate all the group. Let's say I would say where to go. I would choose the hotels. I would choose the tours which was included in that group. So I would manage them because I knew what is going to be done. But because I've never been paid for that part of my work, and now travel agencies working directly to the travel agency in Brazil, so I didn't involved in anything. So I said, okay, then I'm only a leader. I'm not anymore a tour conductor, so I'm not doing it anymore. Let them deal with it. And they deal with it, but very bad, because the Brazilians didn't understand the names and the surnames of the people. So imagine receiving 100 people suddenly with the airplanes and air tickets being bought very late because of the payment of the travel agency. So just an example, a family of 4, a 1-year-old kid is in a plane at 8 in the morning, and the mother is 2 o'clock afternoon, the father 10 in the night. Anyway, it was a big mess in that group, 120. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do any service because all I was doing was running after to manage their, let's say, their tickets, their problems. I was only solving problems. I couldn't introduce them anything to Brazil. That was my decision to not to do anything tourism, especially with the Iranian market. So I didn't do it anymore. I gave up. In the same time, I was getting tired of backpacking, to having all your life in a small bag and carrying around for years and years. It took me around 8 years that I started to think about, okay, maybe it's a time to find me a place and be there. But as I mentioned before, I would get depressed after 2 months being anywhere. Doesn't matter where, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, Curitiba, you name it. Doesn't matter where, because it's same life, same, let's say, same routine every day, and I couldn't stand it. So in that 2009 or 2008, I'm not sure exactly the date, it was the first time I saw a boat, which was a sailboat, and I never seen that before in my life. So a friend told me, yeah, it's a boat, they move with the wind and you can sleep in it and you can cook in it. And for me, that was fascinating. I mean, like, that means I don't need to carry my bag. So I aim for that. There's a lot of story going on, how it became and whatever, but I end up finding an old Argentinian man who lives in a little boat, and he wanted help to maintain it. So I offer him my help so he could teach me some tricks. So he teach me how to do some knots and some other things about living in a boat. And for me, it was that was it, but I never sailed at sea. And one day, one sailor passed by, and he wanted a crew to go up the Brazilian coast. And I go with him. But I didn't understand anything what he's doing, about the trimming the sails, about the whole sea thing. I didn't understand anything until you get to the town called Salvador in Brazil. It was a stop for us, just to provision. So we go out, we go for a drink, we are in a bar, and there's this guy who comes sit on the same table, drink with us, and we're talking bar talk. And the guy was very interested about sailboats, and he said to me, like, yeah, give me your email, I would like to buy a boat, and I would like to hire you to take me to Caribbean. And I was so proud that it was the first time I was sailing. I didn't say no, I said okay. So he get my email, and we sail off again. We go up all the way to the north of Brazil in a small village called Jacaré. When we arrive there, I go to my email, let's say, account, and I have 20 emails from this guy who is like, send me all the pictures about the boat he's seen. He wants to buy it and everything, and he wants my opinion. And I'm not someone who gives opinion about boat because I don't know anything. I've just been on it for a few days. But anyway, where I was, there was one boat for sale, and no one was buying it. I don't know why. But I told him, yeah, there's one boat here for sale. So he came over there. I don't want to make it very long story, but I don't want to make it boring. But he came up there, he decided to buy the boat, and the owner of the boat, which was in France, he gave me permission to start working on a boat. So I started cleaning up the boat. 2 days after, I don't find anymore. I didn't see this person who was going to buy the boat. I didn't see him anymore. And starting calling him, no one answered. He gave me a check as a payment. And the owner in France, he showed a letter that he received his payment. So he was supposed to buy a ticket to come to Brazil. But there was something wrong. I don't know, it's just a feeling. There was something not right. I couldn't find this guy. He was there and then suddenly disappeared. So I told the guy, okay, before you come to Brazil, I will just go try to cash this check that he gave me. And then you buy your ticket, come to Brazil. So I go for the check. Of course, there's no money in it. It was all pure, fake, whatever. But I couldn't understand why someone would do that. But for me, it was very broken because I could see this boat was a very beautiful boat. I could sail with it. I loved it. And anyway, before I come back, and I had maybe $200 at a time. With that, I buy my bus ticket after 2 days bus riding, came back to this small island where I live, called Ilha Grande. But in this island, we don't have a bank. So before I go to that, in that time I had credit card. So I go to check my bank. When I get there, it was all negative. So this guy who came to buy the boat actually abused my reliability or whatever. I don't know how he get it, but he was a professional. So he get all the credit of my card, all the money gone, which I objected because I didn't spend it. But anyway, just make this, sorry, I'm forgetting so many details there, but it's important to say. So the day that this guy didn't appear anymore and the check was, let's say, gone, I see it on the internet and I start to search for this guy's name. put in his name first in Google, everything. And then I started with the pictures. And I started to search for the name of this guy. First page, second page. I had time. I'm sitting there, free internet, and I'm going 15th, 16th page. I found that picture. I find his picture. When I click on it, he was wanted in Santa Lucia Island for money laundering, was wanted in Brazil for drug dealing, was wanted in French Guiana for being a fake surgery, how do you call it? And wanted in Venezuela for medicine contraband. So anyway, wanted in so many countries for so many things. The guy was an expert to cheat and make his way. That's why I checked my bank account before I went to the little island. I didn't pay for it, luckily, because they see that I didn't do the payment and the payment has been done by the phone or whatever. Anyway, I was crushed by the trust that I give to someone and all the whatever comes around it. So I went back to the bar I was working, and it was hard to see that boat sitting up there and I could be sailing on it. Now it's just very hard. Anyway, after 6 months, the marina where the boat was, he wrote me, said, Arjen, this guy who you were interested in a boat, he don't have money to maintain the boat, so I think he would give it very cheap. I said, I don't have money anyway. I mean, it can be whatever, how much cheap it can be. I don't have the money. I checked my bank. I could get a loan for $2,000. So we get in touch, we contacted, and he said, okay, the boat was $25,000. I end up buying it with $2,000. But okay, now suddenly I have this boat, which is not in the water even, and I have no information about the boat, about to see if it's good, bad, what is wrong with the boat, what is not. Anyway, having that boat, after 3 days working on it, let's say preparing, mainly cleaning, taking old shoes out of it, put it on a river goes down in the Atlantic Ocean for 14 days, in the Atlantic Ocean with the sails and the waves, and I don't know how to describe it to be able to make people understand what is it to be in a sea. But not knowing it actually was a very great advantage, because the ignorance, or let's say, I don't know how to put it, but it just helped me to go on. For me, it was logic. The wind comes, grab the sail, the boat moves, so here we go. After 14 days, and boat breaking apart in the middle of the... And because I was afraid, and I was not a good sailor, of course, to be not close to the coast, I went off high sea. I was around 300, 400 kilometers off the coast. Anyway, 14 days sailing, I arrived to where I wanted, very luckily, because GPS broke down. So many other things that could be end of my life, but it wasn't. So I managed to arrive there, and I was very proud of it. So I decided to go on. And one other thing that I didn't know, that when you buy a boat, it's like a car. You need to register it. You need to have number. You need to have license to drive it. I didn't have none of it. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know about the current in the sea. I didn't know about how much of wind is necessary for what. Anyway, I was very lucky. But then I figured out I'm illegal with that boat in that country. And it was the same year that I could give, let's say, to ask for my nationality in Brazil. But then I'm with a boat that by the regulation of Brazil, you cannot have a boat which is a foreign flag registered. It has to be a Brazilian boat. And then again, by Brazilian law, you could only have a new boat bring into Brazil and pay 100% tax. So there I am with a very old boat, which actually is a concrete boat. That's why it was no one buying it, because it was built out of concrete, so it's a piece of concrete. But it floats. So there I am searching to see how do I register my boat, and I know I cannot have this boat in Brazil. And again, I'm thinking of what am I doing, and all this, the living, okay, I have the boat, I aim it, I have it, but I don't have the papers. But I never had papers before. I mean, all my papers has been always a mess. So I decided maybe wrong, maybe right at the time. At the time seems to be right one. So I just sit on a boat, sail off Brazil. I didn't do any paperwork. I didn't do any checkout and nothing. And I sail again. I went to sea, I don't know, 3 weeks later, north of Brazil, stopped provisions. and then keep on going, and the boat start to break out. While this time I was already out of Brazil, going with the trade winds to the Caribbean. Well, I wish I knew a little bit more before the boats, before I start doing what I was doing, but I didn't. And I was in a boat, you're in the sea, it's not like a car, you can just turn off and calm down and walk away. You're in the middle of it, you have no choice than to go with it. And it's just have an idea of the speed of the boat and the distance. For example, you're doing 2,000 nautical mile of distance, which is, let's say, 5,000 kilometers, but the speed is 4 knots, which is like 7 kilometers an hour, and there you are. But it changed a lot in my life, was living on a boat. It brings me a different, let's say, lifestyle, not just being by it, but by economizing the water and how much water do I need to consume every week. That changed my personality a lot by coming down and to see how people use it out in a city or in a town or wherever. In the one you just open the tap, water come down. In a boat, it's very different. Same goes with electricity. Every light on off. It's a very little solar panel. Same goes with the trash. Like, how much trash do I produce a week? How much can I keep a week? You know, so many other things. So it started to changing the life and so I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, because then it's easier. Anyway, after, in a way, going to, my aim was coming out of Brazil, was to go to Panama directly. I was very ignorant. I didn't know anything about things, so it's just things happening. So I arrived maybe 300 mile northern than French Guiana. I feel like, okay, the wheel is not working anymore. You turn the boat this side, it has to go this side, turn that, it goes this side. It doesn't do it anymore. So I figure out, under the water, it's just falling off my rudder. So I had to put a rope and tie it to the boat and jump down there and go and try to fix it. And it was not easy, because I didn't know the techniques of sailing. I didn't know how to heave the boat, how to stop the boat before fixing it. So imagine the boat is going and I'm with the line in the back of it, pushing me and trying to swim to arrive to under it and fix it. It was a big mess, but I was lucky again, I made it. But I decided to stop in French Guiana and not continue it, so I can fix it. I stopped in French Guiana. It was the first, let's say, landfall, and I just arrived there, put the anchor down. The first thing happened, the engine stops. Okay, 2 days later, I figure out the engine, actually the injector pump is broken, and it cost me 2,000 euro to fix it, and I have 200 euro. And I'm in a foreign country, no visa, no paper, nothing. So I went to the custom and immigration and all of that. It's very funny. So this is the good thing about the boat. I didn't know about it, but I was lucky doing it. Because with so many countries arriving with the boat, you didn't need visa actually. Because before you want to fly somewhere, you needed the visa, and they don't give you because you have your Iranian passport. And there I am, I just thought about it. Now I'm just going to go and see what comes. With all the fuck-ups I've done in the middle, I arrived there in French Guiana, and I first, let's say, go to the custom, make the paper, they do it, no problem, and said, what about immigration? They say, it's not my problem, you have to go to immigration. So I went to the airport where they have immigration. They said, it's not my problem, because you didn't arrive with airplane or with a bus, so you go to Maritime Affair. You go to Maritime Affair, they say, it's not my problem. So no one's problem, so it's not my problem. So I stay in that country almost 8 months working, which they put it like, but funny work. I mean, like the things that happen in traveling on expectations, that was the most beautiful part of it. The works like getting crocodile for tourists, which we call it caiman, not crocodiles, but I never seen that before in my life, and they offer me to grab it. And they pay 100 euro a day. It's all right, I need money, right? So I start doing that, grabbing crocodile for the tourists, so they literally see it, they take picture, they maybe fun it and maybe have fun, and then they release it and go. Anyway, long story short, I stayed there 8 months in French Guiana and working, learning the language, learning a little bit of the culture, and then sail off again. Now, again, I'm going to Panama. This is 2013 maybe. After 5 days, I arrive in this island called Tobago. And then after that, for the last 6 years, I've been doing smuggling mainly, between the islands and maintenance and so many other fuck-ups. I'm sorry, I cannot focus on them to talk about them, but there are a lot of funny incidents. To be working at the sailing community and having this little life of ours in this little community, which one always helps another. It's been very different from land. And being living almost 9 years, 10 years at sea, it's make the personality, the person very different, because once you come to land, which we call people land people, come to it, it's a different reality. It's very serious. Everyone is running. My life has been 4 months working maybe yearly, and the rest of the year has been enjoying it. I know it's all right. I don't have anything, but I have nothing to lose. I just have the boat and still sitting there. Anyway, this year I decided to come to Armenia with my girlfriend, Erin. We decided to come to Armenia and see if we can live on a land. And maybe that's the major fuck up, I don't know, but I will try it. Well, sorry, I couldn't conclude anything. I think I just talked too much and there's a lot to say, but thanks for your patience. And is there anything? Thank you.
Հարցեր կարող ունեմ ժողովուրդը։
I found it in the Jacaré, where I arrived the very first time, north of Brazil. So I bought it there and then sailed south to Ilha Grande, fixed it a little bit, patch it up, and then off Brazil. Anyone else? Any question? Yes?
So I also just recently moved to Armenia because I was always moving and realized that I want to find a city where I can identify myself. But the question is still, how do you overcome fear when you are moving around the world, for example? So I always have this problem, I'm scared of, I don't know of what. For example, I'm staying in one place when I'm traveling and I can't go too far away from it. And I always want to, but I have this fear. And also, like in any city, in Yerevan, for example, I notice that I'm always staying close to where my house is. And I guess you've never had this, but maybe you have advice.
No, I never think about it, because when I look at the horizon, I think I'm very curious to see what is unknown. Well, there's two things. One thing is the word we know, limited existence of the word that we know, right? It's the countries, the names, the places. But I believe once you go and look them physically, you understand how the place is, then in your mind the word is much bigger, because physically you visit them, you see them. So I think that I don't have that fear. Actually, it's an excitement that makes me go and see. And yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.